NGA has recently created 2 unique offices with responsibility for interacting with the public sector. And today we're going to hear from the leaders of those 2 offices. First, we have Dave Gauthier, the Director of the Commercial GEOINT Solutions from NGA, and Christy Monaco, the Chief Ventures Officer and Director of the Office of Ventures and Innovation from NGA. Over to you.
Thanks, Rhonda. Yeah, so it is a little chilly in here.
It is.
And we're supposed to be doing a fireside chat.
We are.
Let's fix that.
All right. I think we're missing a fire.
Here you go.
Oh, thank you. That's perfect. All right.
Okay, so thanks for taking the time to come to our panel today. I'll put my marshmallow right there. So I'm Christy Monaco. I'm NGA's Chief Ventures Officer. And Dave and I are going to talk primarily today about if you're in industry, what are the various paths that you can take to engage with NGA to help us harness your innovation. So I didn't realize we had, let's see, there. Oh, there we go. Okay. So we get a lot of folks approaching us saying, hey, I would like to introduce my company to you. I have a new capability that I think would benefit NGA. And so we've created a kind of a pathway within the Office of Ventures and Innovation to help identify those capabilities and consider them, find what we call problem owners inside the agency who might be interested in availing themselves of that capability, and then how to navigate the path of acquisition to actually bring that capability in. So we put together this chart that essentially is what goes on behind the curtain if you or your company approach us and the path that we take, the process that we undertake to consider it. So, like I said, depending on, you can always email us at industryengagement@nga.mil. I get a lot of folks approaching me on LinkedIn, conferences like this, just whatever path you can take to find us, the process that we use in OVI is gonna do the same thing. So if you let us know about your product offering, the first thing that happens is we'll do an initial triage and we'll go, oh, yep, this definitely is something that we should take a look at, or not really an NGA thing. In fact, there have been a couple of instances where we've taken a look at something initially and said, that's not us, but it's DIA, and we'll point a company to a different agency. So we do this initial triage, and then our industry engagement staff, Rick Meilenbeck, Rick, wave, that's Rick. Rick will then reach back out to the company with a 4-question questionnaire. And it basically is a set of questions that help us do a little further look at what is your capability and help us identify what parts of NGA might be interested in it. When we receive that questionnaire back, what we then do is send it out to a group of folks that we call the Industry Engagement Coalition. And this is people from across the agency who are all looking for commercial solutions. So we send it to Dave's office, we send it to research, we send it to analysis. It reaches all across NGA. And then we ask them, are you interested? And they vote. And if there is an office that says, yes, I'm interested, we'll schedule folks for demos. Now, one of the things that we've done recently has been to kind of pivot. We were doing sort of a one-on-one, somebody's interested, we'll set up the demo. And what we were finding was the time it took to do that was a little overwhelming. So now what we're doing are demo days. And this does mirror some of the processes that other agencies or other organizations like AFWorks will do demo days. So we're kind of mirroring that process. I often like to say in the Office of Ventures and Innovation, if somebody else is doing something innovative that would help us with our mission, if imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, I will flatter anyone. So we will flatter the people who've come up with the demo day concept, bring folks in, and we bring those users in who have expressed interest and put them together and have that good discussion. If there's a demo, we can do the demo, or if it's just a discussion, it doesn't have to be a demo. And then after the demo, we go back out to those folks and say, okay, based on what you saw, are you still interested? When they say yes, this is the particularly innovative part of this process. Rather than just turning it over to them and saying, okay, you're off to the races. What we do in OVI is we assign somebody who we know, it's a role that we call a caddy. It's like an acquisition caddy. It's somebody to help that problem owner do a little curation on their problem and then navigate the acquisition process in order to bring this capability into NGA. We help them identify what are the right means of acquisition. It might be a FAR-based contract. It might be, hey, we already have a contract and we can leverage that. It might be an other transaction authority type arrangement. Maybe it's a CRADA. We basically look in our toolkit and we say, okay, for this problem and the timeline you need it on, this is the right thing to do. So that's basically the process. We really try to focus on giving feedback to the companies that we're engaging with along the way to make sure that if we say, hey, you know what, not right for us at this time, you get that feedback, which is, I think, an important part of the process, is to not sort of string folks along and say, oh, maybe, I don't know. We do like to give hard no's if a hard no is the answer. So that's how it works in OVI. I'm going to advance it for you, because this is kind of our transition slide between the OVI office and Dave's staff.
Okay, thank you, Christy. As you can see, there's a lot of work in curating new offerings from the Office of Ventures and Innovation, and we take advantage of that in the commercial solutions area as one of the inputs to our process. But I wanted to start by saying the mission of the commercial business operations group that we created in October is really to increase the mission success of our NSG and ASG partners by enabling them with trusted access to commercial innovation and trusted knowledge of the commercial market. And so if there are data products and services out there ready for us to procure, we actually want to enable that trusted access to that market for all of our users around the world. And that's really critical because the commercial industry that we see today is far different than commercial industry of just a few years ago. It's no longer just about a little bit of extra imagery capacity to offset national capabilities. We like to think of it as an onset of new capabilities and new value creation that doesn't even exist in our users' hands today. And that's based on the innovation and the pace of growth and diversity in the commercial market. And so I like to think if the commercial industry is the engine of that innovation, then our group is the transmission. And that transmission applies the power of your innovation to the wheels of GEOINT. So you can see that as we curate discovery of what's out there in the commercial offering space, we take in inputs that are coming from the startup community and others, curated and caddied by OVI. So we become aware of those new offerings. You can also reach out to us directly. And we learn a lot from our foreign and domestic partners in the government space. And so what happens next is we're coordinating as a clearinghouse for all that discovered knowledge of the market. And if we advance the slides one, you'll see you enter our process. And this process is to discover the tens of thousands of services that are being offered and winnow those down to the ones that are best value to the most mission needs. And that's what we then acquire and procure for our users. So we do that by first working that discovery process, things that show the most benefit to our constituents, our user base. then get assessed, and that's something of a test and evaluation process. And that assessment, that knowledge of how well the company can perform with those services, how viable their market space is, and what the risks are to security, et cetera, those assessments become knowledge for the entire community to understand your offerings. And so I like to think of us as the Angie's List of GEOINT in that regard. So you have a trusted place to go get that knowledge. Should somebody want to procure data products or services for their mission, we then streamline the acquisition process for those procurements, because the hardest thing for a lot of end users is to find something they want that's commercially available and then start from scratch on a contract vehicle to try to bring that to their mission. And so we are setting up different contractual arrangements like GSA Schedule, like IGAP, Janus, and others, so that we can streamline multiple vendors into multiple offerings directly to users in a much faster way. So two really big benefits. The benefits to our NSG users from us operating this process really come in as a trusted knowledge of what the entire market is. It's very difficult for an end user to see the big picture and know what's best value for their mission. And then also that access to contractual vehicles that can really streamline the commercial offerings right into operations for them. The second big benefit is for industry and our partners in the commercial space. There's a huge benefit, and if you pick up one of our cards as you leave, you'll see this directly. You get early exposure by coming in that front door of discovery, whether it's through OVI or directly some other way. Your offerings get exposed to the entire user base of the NSG and the ASG. That exposure then gives you some early feedback based on our mission utility to your products and services. And then you get validation if you're assessed, and that validation drives us right into scaled operations, right? So for the first time since I can remember, there's a clear path to go from new offerings to scaled operations. And we're enabling that with governance and infrastructure that you see here, so that we can grow that over time as the industry grows in what it offers us. So I'm strongly committed to a stronger partnership between government and industry, so that together we can drive GEO into the future. Thank you.
So at this point, we were going to take some questions, but I do want to, I'm going to preempt the questions because I suspect this is one that's on everybody's mind, and that is, Dave, what comes to you in your process versus what does OVI caddy all the way through?
Okay, that's good. First question. So a lot of what comes to us is if there are near ready or ready data sets, products, or analytic services that you want to bring to market, get early exposure, get validation, we want to put those products and services in the sort of the master catalog and do that. So a lot of what we are looking at are more established parts of the market. If you are, and that's really for data products and services, if you are another partner that wants to build capabilities or bring other things to bear, and you have less clear idea of how to work with the federal space, and maybe you're a startup that needs a little extra time with problem curation and caddying so you can understand how to navigate into our process, you would definitely start with ventures and innovation.
Yeah.
So.
And there are a number of products and services, not necessarily geospatial data, but products and services that aren't GEOINT. Things like cybersecurity, things like facilities technologies that don't go to Dave, but we in OVI would help continue them through that acquisition process. So if it's geospatial data products and services, we'll hand it to Dave. If it's other, we'll retain it. But the other thing I would say is that if you approach Dave and it's not something that his office is uniquely suited for, he'll pass it to us. And when geospatial data products and services offerings come to us and we think, hey, this is mature enough to go over to Dave, we pass it to Dave. So we've got a really strong partnership and a sort of a clear understanding of what goes in that process versus what goes in our process.
And I'm glad you mentioned, I want to take one more minute to talk about the data products and services that we are expecting, that we are looking for. I said earlier, it's not the traditional commercial imagery you may have thought of over previous years. When we're talking about the data that we're looking at, it's not imagery anymore. We are, as many of you know, we're asking the NRO and to curate basically the imagery supply channel for us. And so we're really going up the value chain towards analytic services and other types of data. And so there are huge advances in the commercial market at geolocated data and geolocated data services that we're seeking to take advantage of. So the short answer is, if it's the kind of data that locates things on a map, we're interested in it. And that can be from internet devices, that could be from RF collection. If you're locating things on a map, there's a product or service that we're interested in. And then keep going up the value chain to analytic services. So we really are in an inflection point in the community where there's no way it would be possible for our analysts to evaluate or analyze all of the raw imagery data that could be brought to us. So we're asking for a lot more joint analytic efforts where your analytic services and our analysts in the community can work together to bring mission to bear.
All right. We're getting a lot of questions there. I think everybody is interested. We have,
and if we don't get to answer all the questions in our session, because we've only got about 10 minutes left, we'll take them and we'll figure out how to get answers out to you guys.
Perfect. Thank you. So we've had several questions around, I'll start with, how are you working with other NGA offices and NGA's customers to create a clear mission demand signals? And follow on to that, similar is if a company comes to NGA and does a demo, say in the analysis directorate, do one of your offices pick up the engagement after that? And building on to that, it's a three-parter. NGA offices say that we industry have very needed solutions, but program managers say there's no budget. What should we do?
I'll start with the first two parts of it, and that is when I spoke about the process and I talked about problem owners. What we're trying to do is put the focus on what's the problem that's trying to be solved, what's the actual customer need, to make sure that we understand what the actual nature of our own needs are before we go and pursue a solution. It's a really important step for us because I often say if you need a canteen to cross the valley of death, you're filling it during problem curation. So we're working alongside those problem owners. So like I said, they might be from analysis, from source, from anywhere within the agency to say, before we go buy something, let's make sure that we really do understand the nature of the problem. So that's essentially how we're trying to work that part of the process. I hear you on the budget. It is a perennial challenge, and so one of the things that we in OVI are doing is recognizing the value of time and taking a look at the speed with which we're tracking right now 287, I think it is, pilot and prototype projects around NGA. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is basically say, all right, these are pilots and prototypes. We need to make sure that they are progressing rapidly and that we are learning what we need to and ending them when they need to be ended. And again, knowing when to end them because they need to be ended. If you did good job with problem curation up front, you know the conditions that you were trying to meet, and so that becomes a little easier. We recently, of that 287, we recently had the leadership officially ended 39 of them. That's good news, because what that does is it frees up the resources we need to plug back into the front end of that pipeline. We're going through another group of them right now to try to figure out, okay, is it time for these?
Okay.
So if I could add to that, a question about a demonstration and then where does it go from there? Same thing with a pilot or prototype effort. Once we're aware of those things, our assessment process in that diagram you saw earlier, which some people called a funnel, but as an aerospace engineer, I'm demanding it be called a nozzle, because funnels drain things and nozzles accelerate them. But so our nozzle has an assessment process. That assessment process is not our offices doing assessments. We use a community of practice to do GEOINT assessment, the GA-COP. And that community of practice is end users throughout the community who have volunteered their time to assess these new offerings. And they may have been demo efforts, or they may have been pilots or prototypes. But we're basically using the entire community's knowledge, and that has a double benefit. One benefit is we get to learn the mission utility of those capabilities and reflect that back to the community. The other benefit is your products and services get more visibility and exposure across the NSG. And what that helps us do is curate requirements for innovative things that our users didn't know they needed until they saw something in hand. And that's been a huge challenge. And we can gather those requirements, and then that helps drive the budget process. Yeah.
All right, so I think we've spoken to this a little bit. Last year in GEOINT 2018, Don Meyerix said that the federal government is your worst first date ever, but an amazing long-term partner. So how successful is the process that we've talked about here for small businesses, and can you share any numbers?
So the process for small businesses, I would say we're working really well. OTAs are working out really well for us. Last year at this time, I think we were talking about OTAs, but we had only actually awarded a single OTA. We are to the point now with OTAs where we actually exceeded our OTA. We award OTAs through a consortium, and there's a contract for that. We exceeded that ceiling basically at the end of the first year, beginning of the second year of that OTA contract. So it's funny. The team came to me and said, "We have a problem. We're at the ceiling." And I said, "This is a good problem. It means that people are seeing the value of OTAs for rapid acquisition, bringing companies in, taking a look at their capabilities really quickly." One of the companies that's here at GEOINT was a company that was awarded an OTA from our outpost in Silicon Valley. We awarded a phase 1 OTA. They did really well on that. We awarded a second phase OTA on that. They're doing really well on that. It ends in September. The customer in this case it's Analysis, has already said, "We love it, we want to get it." So we're less than a year in, and we're already at that point of adoption.
Can you talk more about some of the prototypes that you've seen, and how have any of them been put into operations at this point?
Sure, I can talk a little bit to some of the prototype efforts at small scale that we've done. Are companies that are providing automated feature extraction buildings and roads so that we can rapidly enrich certain cities of the world when mission demands that we do so in Foundation GEOINT. And so that started with really one city, Kabul, last year. And the mission users liked that product so much that we expanded to multiple cities this year, and the demand is growing exponentially for that kind of rapid enrichment of Foundation GEOINT capabilities. Another example would be what I consider to be monitoring services around the world for globally dispersed areas. And so it's no surprise that we have an interest in what happens at ports around the world and the comings and goings of certain ships. And so there are certainly companies that can get very creative now in offering that as a service. And it's just a tip-off to something has changed, and we then go, use the rest of our apparatus to to follow up on that. But those are very successful services that started as small-scale, one-off demonstrations, and then the demand has grown amongst the user base, and now we're curating them into pools of vendors that we can have sort of on-demand scale as mission demands for more services like that.
All right, we have just a few minutes left, so I'll ask one final question, then I'll give you both an opportunity for any final thoughts. To either one of you, how does GEOINT assurance fit into the discovery process?
Well, we have to consider GEOINT assurance throughout the entire process. And so it's a balance of risk and timeliness to mission need. And so as we create sort of this catalog of capabilities in the marketplace, we do assess the resilience and assurance as part of that. But it really depends ultimately on the end user and what their mission need is that drives everything. So even if something is completely public source information that has almost no security around it, if it's the most timely thing in the market and it's desperately needed, it's available. And then you can contrast that with something that has been fully secured all the way through, and that's available for different reasons. Yeah. So there's a spectrum.
I would also just note that GEOINT assurance is a team sport, and recognizing that when we are acquiring GEOINT, commercially available GEOINT, even if it's open source, it's still got a company behind it. The origin of that information is as important for those companies as it is to us, making sure that there's integrity behind that information, because if a company's offering us a data set that becomes flawed, that's a business problem, and the company is going to be incentivized to address that, and so it's a shared problem, team sport. We're all trying to make sure that we're delivering our mission and that you guys are delivering your business proposition with integrity.
All right, we're out of time for this panel. Any final thoughts for the two of you?
Final thought.
I would just say, if you have time, you're not flying out of here this afternoon, please stick around for the acquisition panel. I think you'll find that they're going to be sort of a nice part 2 to this, and that will be at, I want to say 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll say maybe we didn't start the fire of your innovation, but we hope that together we are fanning the flames.
And you want
of
some
your
more.
greatness. Yeah. You want some more.
Let's give them a big round of applause.